Hey, what's up, Next Level crew? Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Next. And today we got a kind of really cool topic. How many of you out there would love to ditch your 9-to-5 job today? Raise your hand. Stacy wants to leave her 9-to-5 job today.
Welcome to What's Your Next. This is the go-to podcast for aspiring business owners who want to get to the next level, escape the rat race, and give their middle finger to the corporate 9-to-5. If you want financial freedom, work-life balance, and the business of your dreams, you're in the right place. Dave and Stacy Riska, husband-wife franchising duo, openly share their successes, failures, and lessons learned in franchising, business ownership, and working with your spouse.
We're going to talk about the timing of if you're going to leave a 9-to-5 job and look at franchising as an alternative, and what are some of the impacts of that decision, both good and bad. That's what we're going to be covering today. And most importantly, when people go to leave their 9-to-5 job, the big word that comes up starts with an M. Money, right? Money. Do I have, and how much money do I need to be ready to financially to leave my 9-to-5 job? So that's obviously a huge topic. And let's go through and talk about when somebody's leaving a corporate job, what do you think the first thing is that they should consider?
Well, I think you said it, the M word, the money. And here's the good thing. If you're thinking about it, that's good. That's where you want to start. You want to make sure that you're going to be financially ready. And there's a lot to think about when it comes to that. Because when you're transitioning from a job into a business, I think you know inherently that you're going to need some money to do that. But how much? What's the magic number? Well, we always tell our candidates we like to see you have a minimum of $50,000 in the bank in liquid cash. And then if you want to, you can have enough money in cash to ramp up your business and or go out and borrow it. But why that $50,000 number? What would you say, Dave?
Well, I think it's really important as they talk about at any point in time, you want to have some type of a safety fund, the rainy day fund. And we talked about in a previous episode, is this a rainy day? Are we economically in a good position right now to even be considering franchises? So watch that episode if you want our take on that. I think you'll get some good insight into that. Which you really need a rainy day fund. And when it comes to business, the number one reason most businesses fail is undercapitalization. And that generally ties in with franchises and small businesses with the ability of the ownership to sustain themselves when things are ramping up or maybe not so good, at that point in time. You got to have enough capital to get through that rainy day. With that being said, that's only one factor here. What are some of the other considerations when considering leaving a corporate 9-to-5 job that anybody should be looking at when they're looking to replace that with a franchise opportunity?
Yeah, there's certainly lots to consider, and it's not just the M word, it's not just money. You're going to want to evaluate how much time and effort is going to be required because it really depends on the business model. We're going to help you learn and explore about which one might be right for you. But we always look at 3 different business models: owner-operator, semi-absentee, and passive. So if you have a corporate 9-to-5 and you're thinking of leaving to own your own franchise, well, depending which business model is going to impact a lot of the decisions. If you're owner-operator and you're going to work in your business, well, then you're literally going to have to leave the 9-to-5 right away to do that. If you're semi-passive, it might be possible for you to keep your 9-to-5, put a manager in place, build it, ramp it up. If you're doing passive, you could possibly keep your 9-to-5 or winnow yourself out, but you're likely going to need to have some nice cash reserves because usually passive income or higher level investment businesses that the idea is down the road, then you're getting cash flow coming in month after month. So lots to consider.
Right. So there's different types of ownership, obviously, in the franchise world that you can go into that may fit your scenario better than others. And this also comes into what we talk about so many times is what's your why? Why do you want to do this? What are you really trying to achieve? Is it flexibility and freedom? Is it legacy? Is it, financial only? What is it? And then you can evaluate which franchise is going to be obviously the best fit for you right now. But there are other considerations, things like health insurance. One of the things to consider is, hey, maybe when I go into a business, I need somebody to help me, right? So is there a social network there of people or, at the franchise level that are going to help me, through this transition that many of them have already been through, right? And things like that it's almost like a support network, right? It becomes almost like a support network. And so there's so many things that go into making this decision. You want to make sure that you've checked as many of those boxes as you can before you just go out and give your notice to that corporate employer that you're working for. And sometimes what it means is that, particularly if you're a husband, wife, maybe one stays in their job, the other one, goes and runs this opportunity. That's not a bad strategy at all because then you kind of keep a salary in general. And you keep some health insurance, hopefully, from that one that's still employed, that it takes some of that stress off and you have some income coming in no matter what happens, right? So you really have to look at all these factors before you make a decision on a franchise, and particularly what kind of franchise that you're going to acquire.
Yeah, I think another thing to consider is what that startup phase looks like, because in different business models, it's going to be different. Some businesses are able to generate cash flow from day one. Some businesses, like we always talk about restaurants or brick and mortar, well, that's a longer ramp up time because you have the real estate play. You've got to do your build out. And that may be easily 6 to 9 months down the road. So if that's the case, perhaps you can stay in your 9 to 5, keep banking some money to put on the side so that you don't have to step away from the corporate 9 to 5 on day one. But if it's a business that's going to generate cash flow on day one, then you need to understand that. As Dave was talking about as well on the staffing side, when are you going to need the staffing? Do you need it on day one, or is it something you're going to look to hire down the road? But also understand the cash flow of that, because based on the type of business you're in, is cash coming in on day one, or do you have receivables where you may not be getting paid 30, 60, 90 days down the road, but yet you have employees who are getting paid every 2 weeks? And if you're doing more of a semi-passive or a passive option, you may actually put a manager or a director of operations in place. That's an additional investment.
Got it. So we're going to kind of end this topic off with something that unfortunately you should really consider, and that is contingency plans.
Yeah.
What happens if it doesn't work? Meaning that there's so many unknowns out there in the world today. You could pick the best franchise, the best business on the best day, and the ship turns the other direction, and you got to figure out what to do. And anybody knows this better than us, please call us. Because we have been through the absolute worst possible scenario I think you can have, which is, we went into our franchise, if you haven't followed us and watched some of our previous episodes, in 2006. And in 2008, we thought we were, the best franchisees in the world because everything was perfect for 2 years and then the bottom just dropped out. And so you have to have some contingency plans here. You have to say, hey, is this meeting my why, at that point? And if it is, then at least you've got the motivation to keep going and moving forward. And we did. We really did. We really liked what we were doing. We thought we had built a decent business, and the world changed. We didn't change anything. The world changed around us. And so our contingency plan wasn't clear. We really didn't have one, but we figured out we better make one really quickly. And we did. We pivoted our business. We changed the model, and we're here 17 years later. Well, the good news is that you have a franchise to help you in those situations. They need to pivot as well. They've got dozens, hundreds of other units that are all in the same situation as you are in most cases, and they are going to help you and be your support system and help you through those times where you're going to need a contingency plan and you may need to pivot your business a bit to continue. The key thing is that if you really pick the right business, then implementing a contingency plan isn't that big a deal, because your heart and your energy is still in that business, in that you want to keep going and you can make it successful. You just need to change what you've been doing to what's going on in the environment at that particular point. So contingency plans are not something a lot of people like to talk about, but it is something that you definitely want to make sure that when you acquire any business, not just a franchise, that you have something in place as your plan C in case things don't work out in plan A and plan B.
Yeah, I think the whole contingency conversation needs to happen. It is a difficult decision and a difficult discussion. It's one we have with all of our candidates. We will ask them point blank, what would you do if this franchise that you're super excited to invest in right now failed? What would you do? And sometimes they haven't really thought through that, because you do need to talk through it. You need to talk through it with your spouse, your family, your partner. You need to think of the worst case situation. So this way you're prepared for whatever comes your way. It's going to make you more adaptable and resilient. And that's also the power of a franchise. So when you're looking at that franchise, one word that's not really talked about a lot is diversification. And I think that's really important when you're talking about contingency planning. Does the franchise have multiple revenue streams? Because in our franchise, we realized how important that was. Being in an airport location, selling only the beverages at the time, coffees and smoothies, we realized that we were not going to be able to make it if we did not have food. So because our franchise supported us, we were able to snap on food. Having multiple revenue streams can help you through some of the difficult economic times that might come about. Also, different business models. Some of the franchises have very different business models. Some may be just chuck in a truck, a man in a van. Some may be brick and mortar. Some may be a combination of those. In our coffee smoothie business, we learned that by taking our business to the people via a food truck, totally transformed the business. And from there, diversifying into catering. So always, when you're thinking about your contingency plan, think about the different ways that if something went bad, what can I do to make it a good situation? But then if truly something went bad, what is your exit plan? Can you sell the business? How would you do that? Are you able to cover your loan? Think about all those contingencies and you'll be in a much better place.
Absolutely. Tough conversation.
Yeah.
Obviously something that probably you should have, at least with yourself, if not with your partners, your spouse, or whoever is involved with this with you before you make a decision on going into any business, not just a franchise. So we're going to wrap this up today. Great topic, great information. If you like our content, subscribe, click all the buttons because it helps us in the algorithm. And we'll catch you on the next episode of What's Your Next?